Athletes in Cannabis. Athletes in Cannabis is a platform helping educate athletes and those who support athletes in the cannabis space. This is a new space, a new frontier. Obviously, cannabis has been around for thousands of years, but as we continue to legalize cannabis and end the stigma globally and nationally in America, there's a platform to help educate and inform the general public, but also athletes, those in younger sports and those professionally, and even retired athletes on what cannabis is, how cannabis is consumed, and just the different narratives around cannabis. I wanted to create a platform that really helped to shape the narrative because we've been sold so many false narratives over the years, with the war on drugs, the stigmatism behind players consuming cannabis, players being drug tested for cannabis. So as a former Division I All-American athlete who was drug tested multiple times by my school, the NCAA as well, and as the former ex-NFL free agent with the Oakland Raiders, I understand what some of these athletes have to go through and experience. I also have friends who are professional athletes who've been drug tested, who've been kicked out of leagues, who've been characterized as behavior issues or drug addicts because of their choice to consume cannabis. So I started Athletes in Cannabis, hopefully to help reduce some of the stigma around cannabis, because cannabis is such a amazing drug, amazing pharmaceutical, amazing medicine for people to use and consume, whether it's recreational or medical use. Athletes use it for a lot of different reasons. First of all, I wanted to say that cannabis is something that helps athletes reduce pain, reduce aches and pains, helps athletes to recover and rest. A lot of athletes deal with stress and anxiety, whether it's pre-game, post-game, whether it's injury, post-injury. There's a lot of things that cannabis can help with. Also, I want to let people know that all cannabis does not equal getting high. You have CBD, CBG, CBN, and there are tons of other cannabinoids that are part of the cannabis plant that don't necessarily equal THC, which gets you high. You have Delta 8, Delta 9. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of education that I'm still learning as well. And so we created this platform and we mainly use Instagram, Twitter, social media. I also speak to doctors' organizations. I speak to college kids and courses. So if you want to invite me to speak to your college course, or you have somebody or a program you would like Athletes in Cannabis to attend, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me personally through email, more.gerald7@gmail.com, or you can use athletesincannabis@gmail.com, or you can also follow us via Instagram, Athletes and Cannabis. That will, and you can direct message us through there as well. And I'll get back to you. And, I have a presentation that talks about cannabis, the different forms, different athletes that have ventured into the cannabis space, whether they're entrepreneurs or just consuming. And so there's a lot of information that's happening in this space, and it's happening fast. And so I wanted to tap in with you guys and do a quick video that you can also follow us on YouTube as well. I forgot about YouTube. We're on YouTube, Athletes in Cannabis as well. So just type in Athletes in Cannabis and typically will pop up. And that's spelled out Athletes, AND Cannabis. And so you'll be able to find us. But we got some breaking news. That's great news for anybody in the cannabis industry, any athlete out there, whether you're playing sports, high school, collegiately, professionally, overseas. This is great information. So previously to today, we had the MLB. They were one of the first major organizations in America, sporting organizations, to kind of limit how they were going to be treating and testing their athletes for cannabis. They've also done a partnership with Charlotte's Web, who produces CBD. So they're doing marketing and advertising, I believe, through that lens. And so today we got word. I'm going to share my screen, and before I'm not going to say it, I'm going to just let the screen show it, and I'll pop up in the corner screen. And so according to Marijuana Moment, marijuanamoment.net, the NBA is lifting its ban on marijuana in new deal with the players union, according to a report. So this came out today. As you can see, it was published 10 hours ago, April 1st, 2023. This is not an April Fool's joke. This is serious. There's a lot of things going on in America right now. There's a lot of things going on in the world. And so for me, this is huge for the athletes, for the NBA players. This is huge. If you follow the NBA, you know Kevin Durant, one of the best NBA players to ever play the game, one of the best NBA players currently playing, came out and said that he was consuming cannabis, and he also did a partnership with Weed Maps to help end the stigma. So this is big, 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 big news. And so I'm just going to go through this article by Tom Angel and Marijuana Moment. Also, if you're ever looking for any news information on cannabis, and also why do we use marijuana and cannabis, right? So marijuana is the term that has been used perpetually the last 50, 60 years. It was also used to kind of be a racist term and stigmatize the plant. I use cannabis because cannabis is more of the scientific terminology that the scientists, the educators, and people use to really label the plant. So it's really cannabis. You have cannabinoids, you have the endocannabinoid system. All human beings, and I believe most mammals have an endocannabinoid system. So we have the actual receptors to receive cannabis, and we also produce cannabis in our bodies. So let me dive into this article real quick so you guys can hear what's going on. So the National Basketball Association, the NBA, is reportedly removing marijuana, cannabis, from its list of banned substances and will no longer drug test players for it as a part of a 7-year collective bargaining agreement. The move, first reported on Saturday by Shams Charania, I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, of the Atlantic and Stadium, formally codified what has been the league's decision to temporarily suspend cannabis testing for the past 3 seasons. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver signaled in late 2020 that the policy could eventually become permanent after the league initially suspended cannabis testing when players competed in a quarantine bubble in Orlando at the start of the coronavirus pandemic earlier that year. We decided that given all the things that were happening in society, given all the pressures and stress that players were under, that we didn't need to act as a big brother right now. He said at the time, I think society's views around marijuana, cannabis has changed to a certain extent. End quote. Rather than mandate blanket tests, the commissioner said that the league would be reaching out to the players who show signs of problematic dependency, not those who are using marijuana casually. Now, according to Charania, NBA players will no longer be prohibited for marijuana under the new 7-year CBA. It's been removed from the anti-drug testing program, a process that began during 2019 and 2020 season, he reported. NBA and the National Basketball Players Association announced earlier on Saturday that they reached a tentative agreement on a new CBA pending ratification by players and team governors. But the details won't be released until term sheet is finalized. So here you can see NBA communications, Twitter, NBA PR. The following has been released. NBA and NBPA reached tentative deal on new collective bargaining agreement. New York, April 1st, 2023. And so obviously we still have to wait for the final term sheet to be signed. We don't know how long that'll take, but this is great news. And I'm going to continue to read the article. Michelle Roberts, a one-time head coach or head of the NBPA, who also joined the board of major cannabis company Cresco Labs in 2020, previously predicted that a formal change to codify the policy could come soon. In 2021, it was announced that the online marijuana marketplace Weed Maps is teaming up with NBA star Kevin Durant for a multi-year partnership that's aimed at destigmatizing cannabis and showcasing the plant's potential value for athlete wellness and recovery, which is what I said earlier. This latest action from NBA comes as the national discussion about cannabis testing policies for athletes continues to unfold. an issue that made international headlines following the suspension of USA runner Sha'Carri Richardson from participating in the Olympics over a positive THC test. The runner said that she'd feel blessed and proud if the attention her case raised would affect a policy change for other athletes. Even the White House and President Joe Biden himself weighed in on the case, suggesting that there's a question about whether the marijuana ban should remain the rules. However, the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, decided last year to keep marijuana on the list of banned substances for international athletes following the scientific review and a determination that cannabis use violates the spirit of sport. MLB, one of the most progressive professional sports leagues when it comes to cannabis policy, recently signed a CBD company to serve as the league's first ever cannabis sponsor, with plans to promote the business at the upcoming World Series. So I'm assuming that's 2023 World Series. The decision came about 4 months after it was reported that the MLB started allowing baseball teams in the league to sell sponsorships to cannabis companies that market CBD products, as long as they meet certain criteria. MLB has stood out among other professional sports leagues as more willing to respond to the changing marijuana policy landscape. For example, it clarified in a memo in 2020 that players will not be punished for using cannabis while they aren't working, but they can't be personally sponsored by a marijuana company or hold investments in the industry. The league also said at the time that it was teaming with NSF International to analyze and certify legal contaminant-free CBD products in order to allow teams to store them on club premises. The update built upon MLB's decision in 2019 to remove cannabis from the league's list of banned substances. Before that rule change, players who tested positive for THC were referred to mandatory treatment, and failure to comply carried a fine of up to $35,000. That penalty is now gone. A number of athletic governance bodies have recently relaxed rules around cannabinoids as laws change and medical applications become more widely accepted. UFC announced in 2021 that they would no longer be punishing fighters over positive marijuana tests. Separately, student athletes that are part of the NCAA would no longer automatically lose their eligibility to play following a positive marijuana test under rules that that I think that's a typo. Rules that were recommended by the key committee last year. Meanwhile, the NFL's drug testing policy already changed demonstratively in 2020 as part of the collective bargaining agreement. NFL players no longer face possibility of being suspended from games over positive tests for any drug, not just marijuana, under the collective bargaining agreement. Instead, they will face a fine. The threshold for what constitutes a positive THC test was also increased under the deal. Marijuana icon Snoop Dogg, who was featured at the Super Bowl halftime show last year, where an ad separately aired that indirectly supported legalization, argued that sports leagues need to stop testing players for marijuana and allow them to use it as an alternative to prescription opioids. Cannabis in sports was also a topic discussion amid the detention of U.S. basketball player Brittany Griner in Russia over THC vapes. This is major. You know what I mean? This is a major move. Obviously, the NBA is one of the largest global sports franchises in the world. And so this is a big statement by the NBA. I'm excited for the players. I know a few NBA players. I know a few retired NBA players. And so I know this is something that, has been the talk for a long time. If you follow Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson and their podcast, they talk about it all the time. If you follow Al Harrington, who's the founder of Viola, which is a cannabis company that has been doing a lot of great work. I know he's had a few interviews. He had an interview with David Stern, RIP, who was the former commissioner of the NBA, about cannabis. And so this is a great move. And a lot of times it takes, somebody to move first, right? It takes one of these organizations. Obviously, the MLB has made the decision. Then you have, the NBA now making that decision. Obviously, on the article, it says the NFL has reduced some of their penalties, but the NFL is still a little bit, I believe, behind when it comes to promotion, support, research, and allowing their players, even though the NFL is probably one of the most gruesome sports, if not the most gruesome sport on the body. And I can tell you from personal experience, playing at the Division I level, I only got to try out for the NFL, but football and the wear and tear on your body, it is something else. And cannabis really helps. Cannabis has really helped me personally. It's helped tons of athletes that I know personally and that I don't know that consume. And, cannabis is one of those things. It's better for the body. It's easier on the body than a lot of the prescription opioids that are often prescribed to athletes by doctors, team trainers, and things like that. And so I believe it's safer. I believe it's going to help, not only the sport and these athletes long term to maintain their bodies, to allow them to perform at the levels that they perform at consistently, and maybe, even increase the longevity of athletes' careers. And so this is a great, I mean, this is why we created the platform, really, is, to hopefully be a part of that change, be a part of, destigmatizing cannabis, because there's still the narrative that cannabis is bad. And I was on Twitter earlier, just reading through some of the comments, and there's people, already like, oh, I don't want to watch my players high as a kite playing. And when in reality, there's already players that are high playing. You know what I mean? Like, people really don't understand what cannabis is, and how it impacts or affects the body. And so a lot of people think that, cannabis just makes people lazy, or cannabis is going to, just have this profound impact on people, that they're not going to be in their right frame of mind. And I can just tell you personally that cannabis really, and it depends on what strand, right? It depends on if you have an indica, a sativa, a hybrid. A lot of cannabis is hybrids now. So you'll have a hybrid sativa, a hybrid indica. And so it's all about balance and finding what really works for you. Everybody's body is different. Also, you can microdose with cannabis. It's one of those things where, you can just ingest a little bit of cannabis to get you to right where you need to be, whether it's going to help you with achy joints, help you stretch, or just help clear your foggy mind, so it helps with a lot of things. And so this is great news. I couldn't wait to get back to my computer to make this video just to share, because this is huge, and we have a lot of things happening in the cannabis space. Kentucky governor signs medical marijuana legalization into law. That just happened, I believe, yesterday. So there's a lot of things moving right now in the cannabis space, and I think it's great. And it's not just great for athletes; it's great for society. It's great for culture. We have so many people dealing with so much right now, especially coming out of COVID-19 pandemic. Cannabis is a great alternative to opioids. Opioid abuse is skyrocketing. Opioid addiction is skyrocketing. And I believe cannabis can really help offset some of that. Also, you have alcoholism. I believe cannabis will help reduce some of that. And you just have tons of other things that, cannabis can really help with: stress, anxiety, pain relief. You have people with illnesses. You have people with AIDS, HIV, cancer. You have people with arthritis. You have people with tons of ailments and illnesses that just want to feel normal, or feel some sense of normalcy, or feel some sense of relief without having to, shut off. And so cannabis is one of those things that really can help, a lot of people. And also, there's a lot of people that live in fear of even talking about cannabis, whether it's losing their job. We have a lot of veterans dealing with PTSD, obviously coming out of a war, and we're always in war. So you have people dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and all sorts of things that really cannabis can really benefit folks. And so it's up to the people, like myself, who are medical patients. I'm a medical cannabis patient. I'm a medical cannabis advocate and activist. And so, especially for underserved, disproportionately impacted communities impacted by the war on drugs, which is known to be a racist ploy to really impact, Latinos, Mexicans, and African American communities the most, even though Caucasians pretty much consume at the same rate, if not more. And so this is huge. And so I know there's a lot of states, rolling back their, how they prosecute cannabis. So now you have a lot of states and cities, major cities, that you might just get a fine if you get caught with a certain amount of cannabis on you. And so this is great, great news. And so I'm just thankful that we got to share this news with you all. And so be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Again, Athletes in Cannabis. Follow us on Twitter, Athletes Cannabis, and continue to support. Again, I do this, just out of passion and love for the plant and for the people. I know there's a lot of athletes personally that don't speak on it, and a lot of times it's just part of our lifestyle. We shouldn't necessarily have to speak on it or feel forced to, or whatever. But, I feel like for many people, there's a lot of people living in the closet, right? They don't want to share their cannabis experience, whether it may, come out in public, and it might ruin, job opportunities. It might ruin marketing opportunities, because again, what happens is people use cannabis and they say it's a character flaw, right? Like, oh, he's high as a kite. He high, like he can't function, or he's a drug addict, right? And cannabis, beautiful thing about cannabis is that pure cannabis, you cannot OD, you can't overdose on cannabis. I've never seen it. Nobody has ever died from cannabis use alone. You don't overdose on cannabis. You get to a certain point where you just can't get high anymore. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, again, our bodies have an endocannabinoid system, and I'm going to actually look up, some content on YouTube to just share with you all about the endocannabinoid system, because this is something that doctors aren't even taught or trained in, school, about the endocannabinoid system, which, is amazing to think that we have our doctors who, a lot of people go to for, help and understanding and education. And here in America, they're not taught about the endocannabinoid system. So I'm going to play this video where we talk about the endocannabinoid system and how important it is to the body.
Receptors in the body. Humans are born with an endocannabinoid system that serves an important function in both the development of the brain and the formation and development of synapses, the electrical connections in the brain that allow neurotransmitters to send information. Endocannabinoids and the receptors they bind to exist throughout the body. In the nervous system, glands, immune cells, organs, brain, and connective tissues. The system permeates all 11 central physiological systems in the body, working to handle the many functions necessary for survival. The ECS works to balance our vital physiological functions, affecting everything from sleep, appetite, pain, inflammation, memory, mood, and reproduction. How the ECS works. The ECS helps to regulate homeostasis across all the physiological systems, ensuring they're all working in harmony with one another. External stress creates an increase in the stress hormone, cortisol, in your bloodstream, which leads to an increase in endocannabinoid production in response. The endocannabinoids increase with stress to balance cortisol production in the blood. Endocannabinoids are produced naturally inside of the body. Compounds found outside the body, like CBD and THC, are called exogenous cannabinoids. CBD and THC are phytocannabinoids, meaning they originate from plants. Exogenous cannabinoids act similarly to the endocannabinoids produced by the body itself. The ECS works in the key lock model. Cannabinoids act as the keys within the endocannabinoid system, while receptors act like locks. Every time one key fits into one lock, the lock causes an effect to occur in the body. The ECS comprises three primary components: endocannabinoids, enzymes, and receptors. The two main types of endocannabinoids found in the body are anandamide and 2-AG. 2-AG is the most prevalent endocannabinoid, responsible for managing appetite, pain response, and immune system functions. Anandamide is responsible for runner's high and the blissful states that come from exercise and meditation. Enzymes act within the ECS to recycle used endocannabinoids after the body is through with them. Receptors receive the messages transmitted by cannabinoids, the groups of active compounds that interact with ECS receptors. There are two main types of receptors, CB1 and CB2. CB1 receptors exist in the brain and spinal cord, working to regulate appetite, memory, and to reduce pain. CB2 receptors are distributed within the immune system, working primarily to reduce inflammation throughout the body. In each part of the body, the endocannabinoid system performs different tasks, but the ECS always has one goal: homeostasis. The system works to keep the body stable through the inevitable changes and variations in the external physical and emotional environment. This unique endogenous system is the reason for the multiple therapy uses of medical cannabis.
Wow. So it's important that we educate ourselves and use these tools. You know, the internet, YouTube is a powerful tool um, to use and utilize. And so, you know, it's time to end the stigma. It's time that we stop, you know, stigmatizing people for cannabis consumption. At the end of the day, cannabis is literally a plant. And, you know, I understand some people, you know, don't like the smell. But again, nowadays there's so many different forms of and ways to ingest cannabis that a lot of times you don't even know. You have vaporization, you have you know, you have rosin, you have edibles, you have tinctures, you have topicals. So there's a lot of different ways to get cannabis into the system to help people. Obviously, combustion is a way that a lot of people still consume because it's just, you know, the way that people have consumed, you know, for a long time. And a lot of times, if you don't have the tools or the resources, sometimes, you know, you grind up some weed, some ganja, some zaza, some exotic, whatever you want to call it, some marijuana, some Mary Jane, and then you put it in a joint, and then that just helps, you know, the ability to consume. So again, let's end the stigma, let's spread good knowledge, and let's smoke some more weed, baby. My name is Gerald Moore Jr. Thank you guys for tuning in. And again, be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and show some support. Also, let me know in the comments below if you are a cannabis consumer, you know, what's your favorite type of cannabis? What's your favorite strain? Are you an indica? Are you a sativa? If you aren't a cannabis consumer, what are some of the information that you would like to know about maybe athletes in cannabis, or what cannabis does for athletes or just people in general? And then any other comments that you have, if you have any topics that you would like me to discuss on this channel, I'm looking forward to doing more content and more videos under this channel. So please let me know in the comments what you think, and I will be sure to continue creating the content for you guys. But thank you for tuning in. Until next time, peace.